Okay, tell me what I'm describing. Single party rule, strict ideological control, propaganda and thought control, suppression of dissent, isolation from the outside world, discouragement of personal ambition, citizen surveillance culture, social unaliving, and the appearance of unity. I am actually describing the religious cult known as the Jehovah's Witnesses, but inadvertently, I ended up describing a communist country as well. I did this in celebration of this comment here. The video I did where I had the horse standing behind me in the background and I was talking about the new JW narrative. This person who is obviously a Jehovah's Witness and is obviously going to great lengths to hide the fact that he is a Jehovah's Witness thinks that I should go live in a third world country or a communist country for 6 months and that should give me something to whine about. Well, I ask you, sir, what's the difference? If you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, you lived in a communist regime. One of the biggest traits of a communist regime is portion control, meaning food. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and this era was known as the Satanic Panic. It almost seemed as if my parents gave me just enough food to stay alive. Between the ages of 21 and 23, I grew nearly 3 inches. The doctor told me the only reason that can be is malnourishment as a child, and it wasn't just me. There was a Jehovah's Witness family that lived about a block away from us. And his mother and father, who were Jehovah's Witnesses, and the dad was an elder, would leave their children for up to 2 days at a time. He was 10, his sister was 4. One day they came and knocked on our door, asking if we had any food. And I unfortunately had to tell them that we didn't. They went back home and ate the only thing that was in the refrigerator, which was a tub of Cool Whip. When the irresponsible parents finally got home, the father took a kendo stick, you can Google that, it's a savage little instrument, took the boy into the stall of a barn and used it on him to the point where they thought he was unalive and an ambulance was called. Cool Whip. I've seen documentaries of former Jehovah's Witnesses overseas. That was one of their biggest complaints right after CSA. Starvation. We never had anything to eat. My parents would take their last $5 to put in the gas tank just to make it to the meeting so they can relish in some worthless clout because my father was an elder and my mother could say, my husband's an elder. Such worthless titles. Then embarrassingly, after the lodge meeting, my parents would go around asking people for money. Then on the way home, my father would pull behind grocery stores and send myself and my siblings into the dumpsters to dive for food. We ate out of dumpsters for years. And this was only to go home to our electricless house because my father and mother were too lazy to get real jobs. There was another Jehovah's Witness family that lived about a half a mile from us, and 10 months out of the year, they had no electric. None. They had to go bucket the water out of the canal for cooking, cleaning, and drinking. But you better believe they made it to all those meetings. They had the money to buy those meeting shoes and those meeting clothes. My father was such a bum. There would be all 11 of us inside the van. He would go to Dunkin' Donuts, buy a half a dozen donuts for himself, and then buy 4 donuts, have my mother cut them up into portions to hand us these little tiny pieces. Thanks. Going to bed hungry was the norm for us. But one day I found a loophole in this starvation control technique, is what I like to call it. There was a Cuban guy. He was always fishing out in front of our house. Number 1, he taught me Spanish, but number 2, he taught me something even better, how to clean and gut a fish. And he even gave me a small little portable grill to cook the fish on. I told him what the situation was at our house, and he said, you can just eat all the fish you want for free, right here. One evening, my parents went out to dinner and left us at home with nothing to eat again. I immediately went out, grabbed my fishing pole. I was cooking for a few of my siblings, and I was also boiling mussels as well. Another credit to the Cuban guy. He taught me how to find mussels down in the sandbanks. My parents came home. They smelled food, and immediately my dad slides his leather belt from around his waist, which is the norm with Jehovah's Witnesses. Use the belt on your child. Everybody else turns a blind eye. He told me that I was going to cost him a fortune because I was going to give the whole family parasites, and I told him that Cuban man. So, sir, I really don't see the difference between growing up in a communist country, living in a communist country, and being a Jehovah's Witness. Good day.